Hey, what's up, everybody? Real quick before we get rolling. If you didn't know, about 2 months ago, we released an app. That's right. The Coach Site app connects you with our global community of coaches, allows you to access content delivered by the best coaches and leaders in the game, and makes it easy for you to take all that content and create your own personal digital coaching library that you can access 24/7 from any device. Best of all, it's free to download, it's free to set up a user account. You'll even receive a 30-day trial to TCS Plus, our premium content subscription. If you love coaching, you're going to love our app. Click the link below or in the show notes to download it today. And now, on to the show. Since we're going to peel back the layers on hockey IQ, but maybe as a starting point, when you're running practice with the Utah Grizzlies, how do you like to start practice? How do you kind of ignite those hockey IQ senses in your players?
Well, it just starts with habits, right? Like it's just, if we don't start practice with good habits, everything else just kind of falls by the wayside. So for me, and I know coaches have done it for years where, you say there's one puck in the drill and, if you lose the puck, you got to stop on the puck. And, if you recall years ago when I started talking about this, I talked about transitional skating and transitional thinking. And it's how quickly when you get the puck, can you go on offense after defending? And then how quickly when you're on offense and you lose the puck, can you go on defense? And so I think that starts with the very first drill, is that it's an imperfect game. Yes, we want the execution of the drills to be perfect, but I think it's crazy when coaches don't embrace the guys missing passes, because that is the game. And it enables you opportunities to stop and be on the puck and transitional skate, because that's the game. So with us, everything in the first two drills is literally, I very rarely run the drills. I very rarely run practice. I kind of stand in the middle of the ice and I just watch habits. And I let the assistants, we have Jack Skilly, who played in the NHL for years. He's a skill development coach. And Ryan Anderson, who's my number one assistant, who's been incredible this year. Ryan typically is running the drills and Jack will do a lot of the skill work. And I just stand there and literally, if I see a habit that I don't like, I stop it. I don't care about the passes being bad. Obviously, I don't like it, but it's an opportunity to learn transitional play, the transitional skating, transitional thinking. So it's that kind of stuff for me that gets guys in the right mindset. Because if you start practice without good habits, then from there, the rest of the practice doesn't matter how good your players are, how great the drills are. It's not realistic, because the game and losing the puck is realistic. The puck changes hands hundreds of times during the game. Why would you think in practice that everything's going to not be that way? It's an opportunity to teach, right? It's an opportunity to learn. So that's what for me, it's habits. And again, I very rarely blow the whistle. If I blow the whistle, the guys know stuff's going to go bad, because someone's cheating the game. And again, to me, it's just an unacceptable facet of it. So for me, hockey IQ is so much transitional thinking, transitional skating, and the ability to know when you're in one or the other.
If I asked you to complete this sentence, you join Utah, it's training camp, you get in front of your players and you say, fellas, the habits that we're going to pay closest attention to are...
Two habits: stopping and starting, and stick on the ice. And the players are so talented now. Like, they can make hockey plays. Like you think, well, they're not in the NHL. How good can they be? And then you put your penalty kill unit out there and you see the power play start whipping around. You're like, these guys are pretty good. Yeah. I think the evolution of the major junior college scene has really elevated and will continue to elevate the East Coast Hockey League, because what we really are now is a league of 24-year-old seniors coming out of college that are men. They're bigger, they're stronger. They've played 4 or 5 years at a really high level, and they're talented. And so if your stick is not on the ice and you don't have one hand and you're not covering a lot of ice, you're going to get picked apart. And if you don't stop on the puck and you don't, like I said, stop and start straight line skating, if you lose the middle of the ice, if the windshield wiper, the looping, if you're that guy, the teams can expose you pretty quick. And it's only enhanced as you get to the American League and the NHL. So for me, it's stopping and starting and sticks. And we do drills literally where the players are only allowed to play with one hand on their stick defending. Otherwise, I blow it dead. It's you've got to take away ice and you've got to take away lanes. And Aaron, I again dating myself. I don't know how many people remember. I used to talk about there's two critical things to defending, and it's the first thing is discourage with your body. Right? If I stand, if you're trying to pass to someone and I stand between you and that player, I've discouraged you a little bit because you got to put it through me. And then the second thing is disrupt with your stick. And I did a presentation, or I did something for the site years ago called the 5-foot rule, that everybody is 5 feet from being a good defensive player. 85% of the goals in the NHL, we're not talking about Kaprizov comes down the ice and he fires one back door. Where Kaprizov comes down the ice and he makes a pass to Boldy. So when player A passes to player B, the defending team is within 5 feet of player B 85% of the time. That means you're 5 feet from stopping a goal happen at the highest level. So it could be lifting his stick. It could be boxing out. But it's literally one step closer. You've already probably lowered that chance of that player scoring because you've discouraged the pass. You put your stick on the ice, it's even more so. And if you talk to the goalies in the East Coast Hockey League and you see their numbers when they get called up to the American League, and their numbers are always significantly better in the American League than the East Coast League. And I asked them, I said,
interesting.
Why is that? And they said, Coach, because it's predictable and the defending players are predictable. So I know that if there's a guy over here, I don't have to worry about that guy. So I can challenge the shooter more. And it's just the defending of the players at the higher level, the buy-in, quite honestly. You don't see games you see the games in the NHL now, the shots are 23-19 and the score is 6-5. And you're like, how is that humanly possible? The players are so talented, right? But again, I encourage people when I lecture on hockey IQ, I tell every parent, have your son or daughter go home and watch the highlights and only watch the guy defending away from the puck. And you'll see how many times if that player just stood one step closer, or he lifted the player's stick, or he boxed that player out, that goal would never happen. But we all stare at the puck, and I know it's been like that for 75 years, 100 years. And I tell our guys before every game, the least dangerous player on the ice at this level is the guy with the puck. Our goalies can stop the guy with the puck. It's the other four guys that if we do not know how to defend them, you're going to give up goals. And I truly believe that to be the case from this level on up through the NHL is let's eliminate the Connor McDavids of the world, the elite players. So it doesn't matter, right? What you do, it doesn't matter. But you're talking 10, 15 players that they are the most dangerous guy when they have the puck. The rest of the players are defendable.
How do you develop? And I mean, maybe a good example this year because you moved into pro hockey, but what you just described there about getting players to pay attention to the player without the puck or to watch video, I would think that has to be really intentional. That's not natural. That's not what the players want to focus on. How do you sell them on it?
Well, like I said, the video it's funny how honest and true video is. And they see one clip and, at this level, every replay of every goal is shown about 20 times on the Jumbotron. So they see it, they look up at the screen and they see it pretty quick, right? You don't have to say much when they have to see it, but it's the easiest thing to teach because it's not, you don't need to do a pre-scout to know that someone on the back door is dangerous. It doesn't matter what team he's on. If the puck crosses a Royal Road, I mean, there's stats out there. I recall, again, I forget the guy's name that was a goalie coach for the Rangers when Henrik Lundqvist was in his prime, and his save percentage on shots that didn't cross the Royal Road was like 960 something, and it dropped to 620 something on Henrik Lundqvist, a Hall of Famer, when it crossed the Royal Road. You don't need a pre-scout of opposition to know that. It's just pure data, right? And you and I were talking before we got on this about sometimes you look at the data and you're like, how is that not just hit someone square in the forehead? Not to do it, right? And we took the approach this year of not pinching at all. Our D are not allowed to play defense going forward, but we play with an exaggerated gap. Our gap is obscene. We are tight.
Obscene, it's how tight it is, or how
tight it is. When we're in the offensive zone, everything's and again, I'm saying stuff that you're going to remember I talked about. When I was a guy talking about toe caps back in the 2016, 17, and I was saying everything defensively should be based on opposition's toe caps, or toe caps are down ice, which means pointed at their net. Why would you ever allow them any space? That they're not a scoring threat. Like, I'll pause a clip on the bumper, and if the bumper's toe caps are pointed at the sideboards or pointed at the D, I'll tell our penalty killer, like, is the bumper a scoring threat? No. I said, well, then don't worry about him. His toe caps, unless he somehow miraculously gets it and flings it on a backhand, he's a non-scoring threat. Read his toe cap. So when you're talking about gap, now again, you've got the Connor McDavids of the world, you got to be careful because they turn and their speed is quicker than yours. But our D will be down gapped at the dots in the offensive zone. Like, we're not giving up any ice, and you don't have to pinch. And so you play with an exaggerated gap and their stick meets the puck. And then obviously you got reloads and you've got, forwards working hard. But as I said to you earlier when we were before the podcast, the game, I feel, is trending more towards more simplistic style. Like, I don't know if it was Pete DeBoer or I don't know if he was on your podcast, but I heard him say something. He said he feels in the next 5 years in the NHL, they're going to go back to D not leaving the net front because the players are just too talented and the coverages are, I don't know. Again, I don't know which. I just saw a clip of him talking.
Was here, yeah.
And I was like, that's scary that one of the best coaches in the world is saying, we're not good enough. We're not good enough in the way we're going. We're going to have to go back. And so it's the old adage of any sport where there's a possession, which is time and space is everything. And you have to eliminate time and space. You can do that with skating and working. The expression of check with your legs. The best skaters in the league should be the best defenders. They just should, because they can get to situations quicker. They can get above situations quicker. But if you do that and your stick is in the air, that means an eighth of steel on 2 feet is the only thing stopping that pass from going through. So all that work is useless if your stick's not on the ice, because again, the players can one touch it. They're accurate beyond belief. I think for me, that was the thing. I was just impressed with how talented everybody is in our league. That they're just really good hockey players. The days of the East Coast Hockey League being a league where you're just slugging it out, it's not the case. Every team's got 6 forwards. When they put them on the ice, you're like, man, like, we got to defend, right? So, and I think you see that when you watch the World Cup. You got the 20 best Americans, you got the 20 best Canadians, and it's a 1-1 score. Like, at the end of the day, the best player, the 40 best players in the world could only manufacture 2 goals. So what does that tell you? That when the best players want to check, man, oh man. And
it's a great point.
But nobody found the games boring. Nobody said it was boring hockey. But watching the best players track and reload, and watching Mark Stone come back to the house to State Farm and lift a guy's stick that's going to get a tap-in goal and then transitionally skate the other way. Like, that is the part, as us as hockey purists, that's what we love, is wow. Like, they just defended hard and now they're going the other way. And now all of a sudden you got Jack Eichel, who I think is the most underrated player, in my opinion, that I don't think people appreciate how good of a 200-foot game Jack Eichel has, because he got buried in Buffalo and criticized in Buffalo, and great job by Cassidy and Vegas to make him a type of player that, like, he's on the ice in critical situations. And he's also, your top offensive guy. Again, not comparing him to Crosby, but to watch the 40 best players score only 2 goals in 60 minutes is just phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And a great job by the coaching staffs of both countries. Great job by the players. Great job by everybody. But the buy-in is there, right? It's the gold medal. The buy-in's there. So it comes back to, how do you get them to buy in? Because everybody's capable of it.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. The Olympic gold medal isn't handed out in a one and done game. It's a 7-game series. You're the head coach of Team Canada. How would you adjust in game 2?
Well, you got to finish, right? You got to finish.
Yeah.
We left a lot. They left a lot of goals on the table, and they'll tell you that, right? And those are missed goals. If you're in a 7-game series, you definitely can't play your star players as much as you play them, because it's a war of attrition, right? You got to prepare to play 7. So I think load management is a big deal. And, I don't know, I didn't look at the stats or the Instat report or whatever to see what the minutes were for Canada's top D, but, they played a lot. And I
They
know
did, yeah.
Makar's getting criticized for not back checking, on that last goal. And I had people sending me clips and what would you do here? I'm like, well, he's still the best defenseman in the world. He might be a little bit gassed because it was like a minute and a half shift or whatever it was. But I, honest to God, I thought the execution was unbelievable by Canada in that game. I really, I don't think there's any criticism to be blamed. That's not on Vinny. Connor Hellebuyck has the ability to do what he does, and he's done it before. He's done it over and over again. You guys up in Canada get to see him a lot more on Hockey Night in Canada. Is he having a tough year in Winnipeg? Yeah, but like he's done that. That wasn't like a freak game for Connor Hellebuyck. Like he is that player, and the best player on the ice for them was the player they needed to be, and they won. I mean, great that Jack scored the goal, but we're not talking about Jack Hughes if Connor Hellebuyck isn't in the net. I'm not saying Ottinger couldn't do it. I'm not saying the other guy, I forget who the other goalie was, Swayman couldn't do it. I don't know if the score is 1-1.
Well, and part of the reason I ask is that, you mentioned the Royal Road and passing the puck cross eyes. Like the one thing that I observed, and I think it just goes to a little bit of the mental game that Connor Hellebuyck looked like me playing mini sticks with my 7-year-old. Like there was no chance, there was nothing to shoot at.
Yeah.
And you could see it on TV, and I can only imagine what it was like at ice level. But they just seemed in the second half of the game, I sensed that they were trying to force that pass. And to your point, Team USA is like, as long as we can defend the players away from the puck, Connor's got the shooter. And that just seemed to be, it would just seem to be like it was that simple. And we'll eventually get a chance, and hopefully we can bury it.
Canada had success going low to high. Obviously, if you remember the Suzuki goal and tied the game up. I mean, just an outstanding play by Suzuki to 1-on-4, get it in, possess it, and then go low to high. The one thing that I think would be challenging for these star players is on their current teams, none of them are shot blockers. Maybe Trocheck, a couple of the guys are. Maybe, Seth Jarvis might be. But it's not like Connor McDavid's going down into a one-knee shot block, right? So I think the low to high play might be something that, there's an opportunity to take away the goalie's eyes on a low to high. It's hard to take away the goalie's eyes on, net front. When you're in tight, you can take away the eyes, but, there's a lot more bodies and stuff. So I think the low to high stuff, I'm not so sure that at that level, the star players are willing to stand in front of a D shot. But, I think, like people ask me, I watched the game. We were in Dallas that day. We were just getting ready to fly back from Dallas, and so we were all watching. Obviously, we got half the team is Canadians and half are Americans, and a couple Czechs and Slovaks in there. But it was one of those games that you're watching and like, this isn't going to end well. They're leaving too much out there, and the paddle saves the paddle save, but there were wide open nets that one of the best players in the world in McKinnon missed, and you're like, that's not a good sign. And I thought that, the US they would sling a lot of pucks at the net. And I think it sounds like a silly strategy, but when you start slinging pucks at the net, even if they don't go across a Royal Road, the rebounds are coming out to that area. And I think at times maybe Canada got too cute and could have maybe just started slinging some pucks there. Maybe one goes off a shin pad or whatever. When you've got the most talented players, and you're like, hey, simplify your game, just sling the puck there. They haven't done it all year. It's not their style of play, right? And
it maybe takes the USA out of structure. Like it just creates a panic for like a split second. Nobody knows what's going to happen, and that always favors the offensive team, I sense.
One thing that's I tell everybody when I talk about defending, the only thing that is unpredictable in defending is rebounds, because you don't know where it's going. So rebounds create chaos. It creates chaos for the players because as the puck's coming, everybody turns, right? So everybody's toe caps get turned at the goalie, but they don't know they're turning where the puck is going. So the attacking team can puck recover a lot quicker, right? Because they're looking at the puck as opposed to turning to find it. So when you put pucks at net, all 5 offensive players skate blades already pointed at the puck, right? So they have an idea where to go to recover. And then you go low to high. When you're the team defending and your toe caps are looking up ice, and then the puck comes, you've got to turn, locate it, and then go get it. Well, at that level, that extra second or half second leads to you not getting to the puck quick enough. right? So that's to me a little bit of, again, they had the right players. I think top to bottom, people talk about the lack of depth on Canada's blue, and that wasn't the concern. I mean, would we give up 19 shots or whatever? So it had nothing to do with our back end. It had to do with finishing in the biggest moment of your life, and they didn't. And that'll haunt people. But if you are truly just a person that loves the game, the Four Nations and that gold medal game, I mean, when is the last time people are on SNL? I know there's a whole lot of political stuff going on, but the fact that everybody was talking about hockey for the
Hockey
first
hasn't had a better 12 months in its
oh
history, arguably.
yeah, like
And
let's
and back-to-back cups in Florida, that's on top of that. Like in terms of growing the game, this has been unbelievable.
100%. Yeah, like and then what you're doing with the coaches site and the coaches, like we got to get on this gravy train and quit pointing, like, and just like, man, are we ever lucky? Because
Yeah.
other athletes from other sports are like, what an unbelievable sport. I had no idea how I mean, you got celebrities that were at the game that were like, had no clue the game was this exciting. And I, again, as a proud person that represents our sport, to see the humility of the players, I think it's just so freaking cool. I just think it's cool, regardless of what country won. I think it's cool that they're just like, golly gee shucks, this is just so cool. Like, no arrogance about them, and that's what's good for our sport. And that's what we, like you said, we've not had a better 12 months than we've just had as a globally, right? As a sport, it's outstanding.
So with all the defensive talk and everything you just said, the Utah Grizzlies are fourth in the ECHL in scoring. So, like, what are the rules? Because I feel like that's so much part of the game, right? Like, there's such a yin and yang. So, the things you try and take away on defense are the same things you try and expose on offense.
Well, like I said to you off line here, I by no means take credit for the talent level. I always loved, when I was in the Western League, and we had, I mean, Everett has had tremendous success in the Western Hockey League, both in the standings with draft picks, high draft picks. And I always loved when people would say, so, what did you do to make so-and-so a first round pick? I go, absolutely nothing. Like I think, and you alluded to it about some of the coaches that you have on here that are just not the big name people. I think too many of the youth coaches don't get enough credit for what they do. I know there's some things they don't do, but there's these players are so talented. And we have a guy, Jack Ricketts, who's up with Tucson right now, that played at Quinnipiac, and his ability along the boards to come out with pucks. I just kind of sit and marvel. I'm like, someone had to teach him that. Like, what you're really, really good at. And I was telling John Ferguson, I go, Ricketts does something that is the best I've seen. And I go, and I've had some pretty good players in major. I go, his ability in a scrum or a battle along the wall to come out with the puck and then make a play is the best I've ever seen. And we have a rookie on our team named Danny Zhanaev, who they've got listed at 5'6", and that's a stretch. Played at Penn State for 4 years. He's the leading rookie scorer in the league. And I have called everybody and said, the knock on him was, well, let's see at the professional level if he can get it done. He was the leading scorer. I mean, I think he had 37 or 39 points his rookie year at Penn State as a true rookie, as an 18-year-old.
Wow.
And if you want to watch a player that is fun to watch, he is the closest thing, and I'm not trying to get myself in any trouble here. He is the closest thing to Pavel Datsyuk I've ever seen with regards to stripping pucks.
Really?
Aaron, this kid's like a rocket. Like, he was at the All-Star game. He was in the fastest skater competition. He's a rocket. Like, I call him Rocket. And his transitional skating, he leads the league in shots on net. I think he's got like 231 shots on net, leading rookie scorer with 50 some odd points. And I always am amazed that opposition's doesn't have a code word when Zhanaev is on the ice, like whatever, because he steals 10 pucks a game. And he'll get 4 or 5 breakaways a game just from stripping pucks. And his ability to do that, someone taught him that. Like,
have you asked him?
Oh yeah, like he's an undersized kid out of Brooklyn, New York. Um, Never, no complaints. Never like I'm like, okay, this kid's gonna be a handful. There's no way you're this good and he's not nothing. He has literally been a joy. I've called coaches in the KHL. I've called. I'm like, listen, I get that we're the East Coast Hockey League. This guy does stuff I've never seen before, other than Pavel Datsyuk. I'm just telling you, if the league kept track of takeaways, he would have triple the next guy. And other coaches are like, what do you do with them? I go, I can't, like, this is something this player does. But going back to what you and I were talking about before we jumped on here, the transitional thinking, transitional skating, I've been talking about it for years, right? The ability for the player to go from defense to offense and offense to defense.
Can you explain the skating mechanics you're referring to?
So I have a clip that I've showed for years. The very first time was on Twitter back in whatever. Ryan Lomberg played for the Panthers prior to, I think it was the year that they lost in the Cup Finals. And I think
he's one of my favorite players to watch. I've been to a couple of games in Calgary. He's everybody wants like,
there's a clip.
You don't want 20, but you want a couple at least.
There's a clip of him. He gets the puck and he's crossing the blue line and he loses it. And he stops and he takes 2-3 hard steps, pop checks the guy, gets it back, stops, take 2-3 hard steps, dishes it, and scores a goal. And the transitional skating in a 5-foot area goes back to when you said about, I remember talking about habits and like, when do you think players are going to work on that in practice if you don't allow guys to lose pucks and you don't want to encourage players to miss passes, but when it does, it's a perfect opportunity to work on that. And so Zhanayev, he literally, I created a drill. I call it a penguin pop check. That's just literally neutral zone doing exactly. I should call it the Lomberg drill because I literally designed it one day on a whiteboard after watching Lomberg, what he did, because that is the game for most players. The game is played in such small areas. And I've said this, and it is the closer you are to the puck, the more it finds your stick. So it makes no sense to me when guys go stand on the other side of the ice or guys loop away. The most fun part is getting points for everybody but goalies. Why you wouldn't be near the puck? The only way you're near the puck is one, to skate there and then stop. As soon as you veer away from the puck, it's not finding your stick because the game is played in such small areas that, and at this level, I've seen more pucks get knocked out of the air. You're like, oh, it's a great sauce pass. Bing, knocked out of the air. Bing, knocked out of the air. Like, even the sauce passes don't work because the guys are so stinking good at knocking pucks out of the air. Joe Pavelski style in front of the net. So unless, to me, the art of preparing guys to play professionally is have their pass completion rate at the 15-foot range be 100% and work on everything 15-foot passes. If you watch breakouts out of coverage now at the NHL level, they're 5-foot passes out of quadrant coverage in the corner. That's what it is. Someone having the courage to make a 5-foot pass to a guy standing on the dot or standing in front of the net, that guy making a 5-foot pass to the support guy and breaking out. That is the level of hockey. To do that, you have to stop and start, and you have to steal pucks. And so Zhanayev, you talk about us scoring goals. I have just talked about being near the puck. Guys, if you want to score, you have to be near it. Maybe it's a secondary assist. Maybe you're just the guy that's chipping it up the wall that the guy slashes onto. But if you're not near the puck, you're not even the guy chipping the puck. And so this was some of the stuff when you and I were talking prior to jumping on. The best thing I ever did was not coach for years, because it allowed me, and your site allowed me, and Twitter allowed me to study the game independent of wins and losses. And
it's such a great point, though. Like, I think
you see the game differently. You're like, I was a crappy coach. I hurt that. I hurt players before I retired because I didn't allow them to make those plays, because you're like, oh, don't pass in front of you. And don't. No, if you don't do that, the coaching is so good now. The defending is so good now. If you can't make a little bit of a high-risk pass, tape to tape in a 10-foot area, you're never getting out of your zone. You're just chipping it into the neutral zone. They're firing it back in. We started doing something that everybody said wouldn't work at the professional level. And during my time studying the game, when I started, doing more just studying the NHL game, was what does everybody teach when you're on offense and you're forechecking and you lose a puck? Everybody in the world teaches reloading.
Yep.
Stop, get above the puck. So when the wingers would get it on the half wall under pressure and there was no play, I said, I don't want you to get rid of it anymore. Just kill it. And they said, what do you mean, coach? I said, I want you to kill the puck like you would in the offensive zone. Kill it. Get on the wall and kill it. Stop the puck right there. And they said, well, why would we do that, coach? Why wouldn't we just chip it into the neutral zone? I said, well, because they're just going to fire it back in. I said, think about when you kill it, what is everybody on the other team going to do? They're all going to get above it. If you're killing it, let's say 15 feet inside the blue line, and you kill it, the 3 forwards are going to get above it. That means there's nobody in opposition in the house because they're all working to get above it. There's no turnover. There's no transition play. The D probably are going to have to back out a little bit. Now you've got a killed puck, and then we talk about second quick. Okay, once we kill it, we have to be second quick, meaning we have to be the second guy in. They can't be the second guy. Second guy comes second quick. You get it. You just break it out. Our efficiency on breaking pucks out of killed pucks is 85%. Our efficiency on just chipping pucks out, 40%.
Interesting.
But we kill pucks. And so do you get hit a little bit and RD do the same thing below the goal line? If there is no play, don't dink it to the partner and then your partner's under. Don't make your problem someone else's problem. Kill the puck and we'll break out from a dead puck. But the thought process on that, Aaron, is what's opposition do? Opposition's all going to get above it. So now if I got 3 forwards between the puck and the blue line on opposition, that means not one of them are standing by the net front. And if you recall, I did an article for you years ago on how quickly on a turnover the puck gets to the net. It's within 3 seconds because everybody on trying to break the puck out is going this way. And they now call it a lazy back checker, right? There's always going to be an opposition player in behind the team breaking it out because they're going to just wait to see if there's a turnover. So let's not turn that puck over. Let's force that lazy back checker to all have to get above it. Now we have nobody in opposition. Even if we don't break out from the killed puck, they're 40 feet from the net. So these were just things that you're like, will it work? You study it, and you're like, will it work? Well, I started doing it in Idaho Falls, and I'm like, it's junior hockey. It probably just works at juniors, right? Like, and then we did it at this level, and trying to get guys to buy into something they've never done before. They're like, coach, this is so stupid. I go, just trust me on it. And now you hear our guys on the bench, kill it. And then you hear second quick. And we just break out. And it's the possession thing. Why would you just get rid of a puck? Like, what does everybody teach in puck protection? Oh, they puck protect. So why is puck protection only an offensive zone thing? Why is it not a neutral zone thing? Why are we in the neutral zone in our zone? Get it out. But yet in the offensive zone, it's got to protect it. Don't give it up. So when people ask what's changed about me offensively, I just don't give up the puck, or we try not to give up the puck. If we're just going to give it back to them and they're just going to pound it back in, how is that? And then what happens is you heard the Czech guy from, I think it was one of the Czech players against Canada. He said, hard. Oh no, it was Brandon. He said it's hard to be good offensively when you're in your zone the whole time. Is when Canada beat Finland. He said we spent the whole shift in our zone. All we could do was get out, dump it down, and line change, and that's true. So if all opposition keeps doing is just pounding it in your zone, now your best players are tired from defending the whole time. All they can do is get it deep and line change. We're taking the opposite. Like, let's just not get rid of it. It's not dangerous. Us killing the puck 15 feet from the blue line, it's not dangerous. They don't have a guy within 50 feet of our net. There's no risk there. That's not like turning the puck over. We still possess it. And now we work on all kinds of drills, breaking pucks out of killed pucks. And that means you got to make 5 to 10 foot passes because that's all that's available. So again, something that I'm sure at some point on your site, when I start doing some work again for you guys, I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like, but it works.
It's interesting. Like I find this all the time, like, having 2 feet of space, let's say in the offensive zone, you got the puck on your stick. When you have that same amount of space defensively and the puck's on your stick, it's like cut in half. Like there's just a sense of urgency in your own zone. And I always feel like the most skilled plays in hockey happen from below the dots in your own zone. Like the players that can have calmness there, that have poise there, that can make you talk about those little deft passes. How do you maybe develop that in your team to say, hey, it's like you got the same amount of time. I know our net's there and that's dangerous, but it's just make the same play that you would feel really comfortable making in the offensive zone.
Remember when you asked very first question, habits? Okay, first of all, you better stop and start because there are going to be some plays that aren't going to be completed. All right. So as long as we stop on it, as long as we have people in position, but I so much stuff. Like I said, I've seen some of the stuff you've had with Troy Ward on here. I know he's done a lot for the coaches side, and I've seen some of the drills. I do watch some of the drills guys do, and I think instantly, how can I use that drill to help do what we're talking about right now with killed pucks, right? So it's as a coach, first of all, you have to have good enough players, like you said, to make those. And I can't take any credit for the talent level that these young men have at making those plays. I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
I am creating an environment where, okay, they have this talent. How can we be a better possession team with the talent they have and support it? So, there's cliche terms. I remember when reloading, which the first time I ever heard it was Don Hay when I went to work for the Vancouver Giants back in 2008. I'd never heard the term reloading, and it was him and Ken Hitchcock talking about reloading. I'm like, gosh, they say reloading. Like, so one day I didn't have the nerve. I'm like, and I had already been a head coach in the West. I'm like, Hazer, can you help me understand what you mean by reloading? Like, I'd never heard the term, and I had worked with Kevin Constantine for all those years, a brilliant hockey mind, but I'd never heard Kevin use that term. And it was the cliche term. Now the term is connected. We have to be connected. Everybody has to be connected. And the only way you're connected is by stopping and starting and being near the puck. Like, it still comes down to the habit, right? The game, you don't need to be super brilliant. You just need to have good habits, be near the puck to do this, right? So all the drills are, when you talk about small area, it's like creating drills in practice where there's turnovers because there's no space. And then what do you do on the turnover? How quickly can you stop? How quickly can you get your stick here to get the puck back? And then when you get it back, can you make the 5-foot play?
Okay, but I think this is a really important distinction because, as you say that, we have to design drills in practice where there's turnovers and you got to stop and start. I think for a lot of coaches with it, you have your flow drills, right? So those don't lend themselves necessarily to having to stop and start because the whistle goes in 3 seconds, the next player gets their rep. Can you give examples of are these one puck drills, or how do you create drills where it's just players it's like, hey, you're not going off my whistle, you're just playing it out like you would in a game?
Yeah, like I said, there was a drill that Troy and Luke Strand I've seen it on your site where I don't even know the name of it. And they literally go 2-on-2 in one corner.
Yes.
And then another 2-on-2 starts in another corner. They got to come around the cone, simulating a reload, and get over to the other side. And then it just keeps going back. And I don't know the name of it.
Yeah.
I think I call it Mankato 2-on-2 now because I know it came from Troy and Luke. But those little small 2-on-2, 3-on-3, like below the dot things where, and then maybe positioning in the structure that we've coached with, and Troy Ward, probably a lot of us kind of all use the same verbiage that worked together or worked. We've all kind of worked at some point with Kevin Constant. We call it State Farm. I'm sure you've heard it. State Farm is the weak side winger. He's insurance, right? So with Troy, with Luke, with myself, with Jay Verdi, with a lot of us coaches that have all worked together on our team, the weak side winger is called State Farm. State Farm is insurance. So when there's a breakdown and State Farm stands middle of the net, middle of the hash marks in front of the net, that's where you stand because that's where the goals are scored, right? That's where the Royal Road. So everything is based on breaking out to State Farm. So State Farm has got to be in position, and he's always going to be, or she is going to be 10, 15 feet. So you have to have the confidence out of that play. And sometimes State Farm, when you're in that quadrant coverage, is tucked towards more of the corner, right? Because you've got to be aware of where opposition's F3 is. But all of it is, okay, you're going to do a 2-on-2 drill. Just put a State Farm guy there, stationary. And out of it, you got to break it out to him, and then he's got to make a breakout play, and then you go to the other side. And
Smart. I like that. That makes sense.
It is, like I said, it takes confidence as a coach, and I didn't have it years ago. Gosh knows I was the worst defender, to allow that play to happen. But if you don't, you are literally just chipping pucks off the glass all game. Because I love when the NHL comes up with new rules, which then Major Junior does. And the coaches are just too stinking smart. You put a rule in place to try and do something, the coaching staff of the Vegas Golden Knights or whatever, the Edmonton, they're going to get together. They're going to sit there and go, okay, we're going to do this. And they're smart. So the defending is at such a high level that offensively you have to take some risk. Otherwise, you're just chasing the game and you don't possess the puck. And so, again, to me, the game is literally played in 15-foot blocks. And if you cannot play the game in all three zones in 15-foot blocks and make 10, 15-foot passes, you're not going to have the success. And when you say 10, 15-foot pass, that's what people mean by connected. There's someone there. But, the days of making the rip and cross ice pass, well, you're not connected now. And teams are with surfing and back checking and reloading. So it's breakout. I tell our guys, we've got to be good in 15-foot blocks at 35-second increments. So for 35 seconds, we got to be better than them at what we're going to do in that 35 seconds. And that 35 seconds requires stopping and starting, going from defense to offense, offense to defense, get off after your 35 seconds, because after 35 seconds, your ability to transitionally think and skate diminishes by 50%. So when people talk about the 40-second shift rule, it's not so much, it's your ability to transitionally skate after 35 seconds at the higher levels goes down significantly because your legs are tired and you don't have the explosiveness to stop and start and go. So
as you noted, you defend with your feet.
Exactly. So I'm not saying I'm saying anything new. I think what I've learned over the course of time is that you have to acknowledge the respect for the game and the talent of the players. And then you have to have I don't know what it is. You have to have the balls to make sure the guys, you don't ease up on habits. Because if you don't have that, it doesn't matter what you do because the game is still played with your feet and a hockey stick. And if your feet aren't moving and they're not stopping and your stick's not on the ice, it doesn't matter I hear all these people talk about, this, if you look at his reading, they show all this. I'm like, yeah, that's not really how the game's played. Like they'll pause it and they got all this. He's looking at, I'm like, he's not looking at, he's right now worried about, I'm not going to get rocked through the boards and get my 7th concussion of the season. Right. But these people will slow the game down and go, look how smart I'm like, right now, he's just like, give me an out. Right. Or
yeah.
I think, like I said, you watch the Cale Makars, or I don't want to put Hughes in that category because I think they're two different types of players. Their ability to transitionally skate from offense to defense and defense to offenses is what makes them special because they will make some high-risk plays, much like back in the day, the Niedermeyers of the world. But their ability to get their feet and their toe caps going the other way and recover makes up for any mistake they make. And that's why you got to coach those players, right? Like Zhanaev, I've got to let Zhanaev do a little bit because I know he's going to, if he loses it, he's going to get it back in 5 seconds anyways. So I got to let him do what he does and let him be the player he is. And then what I try to do with players, whether it's, working with the IQ kids that I work with MAP or with the Grizzlies here, is expose or not have their weaknesses exposed, but to take full advantage of their strengths and like literally get them in all three zones to use their strengths to their strengths, knowing that if they've got good habits, they're going to get exposed every once in a while. That every player does, right? Connor McDavid will get exposed on certain things, or guys will get exposed. I mean, prior to the Olympics, Jack Hughes was literally getting thrown under the bus for just basically not doing anything for the New Jersey Devils. Now he's the golden child. So it's funny how things can change. He's still a great player, still a great hockey mind. It's fun, I'm sure, for those guys to be on the ice with 5 good players. Like they're looking at the back end going, these guys can get me the puck. They look at their forwards, these guys can get me the puck, right? They're on the ice with 5 special players at the Olympics every shift. They just got to be near the puck and the guys will get them to them. So yeah, like to me, that's the key to offense is being closer to the puck and executing in a 15-foot area at a high level. I mean, obviously you get to youth hockey that execution isn't as successful, but there's no reason at the junior level or the college level in those 15-foot blocks that and it's, you want to play fast like that, you better make sure everybody's toe caps are going the right way. Otherwise, it's counterproductive to executing on exit.
So one of the things that we've learned through this show, John, is that so many of the coaches that come on the show, particularly the big name coaches, the ones that are behind an NHL bench, they got their start or at least spent time in the East Coast Hockey League. You've noted that the talent level in the league has improved significantly over the last 10 to 20 years. But, aside from the players in the league, what is it about coaching in that league that you would suggest lends itself to maybe helping coaches develop the calluses necessary to succeed at the highest level?
Well, there's one thing is that you're more than a coach here, right? I mean, you talk to any coach in this league, they'll talk about housing, they'll talk about dogs, they'll talk about girlfriends, they'll talk about wives. Um, there are so many things, immigration. And, I was blessed this year. I said, Ryan Anderson, who's my assistant, has made my life so much easier, much more so than maybe some of the other coaches in this league because of some of the stuff that he's taken off my plate that's allowed me just to coach. But you literally realize you have to love coaching to coach in this league. It is, I have nothing but mad respect for guys, that have been in this league for several years. Guys have been in the league for 10, 15 years. And I don't know how they've done it because as I joked with you off camera, I said, I think the coaches in this league are the most underpaid professional coaches in all of hockey just because of what they have to do. And the challenges that you're faced, as I said, jokingly with you, I when people ask me about coaching this league, and I said it's like trying to dock an aircraft carrier without a navigation system because there's so many things that you now have no control over because there's things that control what you do as a coach. You have the East Coast Hockey League that has its set of rules that you have to abide by, right? League rules. Then you have the PHPA that, obviously is the union for the players, that things that you have to do or not do based on that. You have the rules within your own organization, budgetary, travel, what you do. And then, we all are an affiliate. With us, it's the Colorado Eagles. So it's dealing with the American League team. When they call players up, they don't care whether you've just had 7 injuries that week and you've only got 3D. They need a player as well. So there's all these people and all these associations or groups that make your job challenging. So every game, you are literally coaching potentially a different group of players, and you're having to, without disrupting how your team plays, find a way to win. Because at the end of the day, that's still your job, is how to win. So I think there's not a lot of smooth sailing for the coaches in this league. I think there's a lot of this, and the coaches that have figured out, like Tato had this in Kansas City. I mean, they just went 27-1 in 28 games, right? Like just a ridiculous amount of success. But he does it every year. And he loses players no different than everybody else. They have a great relationship with their affiliate and they get good players, but he does a great job there, right? Like he obviously does a great job there and he wins every year. He's figured it out. So like guys like Jared Bednar that got their start in this league and some other guys, right? You have to figure out, it takes you a few years to figure out how it works. But once you figure it out, you learn to win with whatever group of players you have. And I think as you get to the NHL, right, you're calling guys up from the American League when you run into injuries. But we all know those players aren't stepping in and replacing the McKinnons or the Dreisaitl's or whatever, right? They're coming in and they're playing different kinds of minutes. So I think the coaches that come from this league, like I said, I have nothing but mad respect. I would never, ever say a bad word about any coach in this league, only because I know how hard each and every one of them work. And I think for the fans and for the people with the East Coast Hockey League, these guys every day come, we all want to win. And as I said to you, we had a stretch there for the month of better part of February and a bit of January where we had 17 players, right? 17 guys that played regular games out of our lineup at one time, whether they were called ups or injuries. And so you're literally playing with 3 or 4 guys that were part of your group and then guys that weren't there. And so you're literally sitting in front of a whiteboard every night. Hey, this is our coverage. This is our forecheck. Here's our neutral zone. Have fun. Just don't cause us to lose. And you're doing that every night with 3 or 4 different players. but I think that also, they're again, these players, my daughters are 32 and 31, as I said to you. So all of these players are younger than my own children. So I look at these young men as to me, they're boys. But they're family. To me, they're family. And I really think to be successful at the professional level now, if someone asks me what's the most important thing you need to be as a coach, is you need to establish trust. The players need to trust you, because I think at this level, the players aren't very trusting. And so you get an old throwback like me that bases everything on families. I joked with you before the podcast. I told the players at the beginning of the year that we were going on a family vacation to Disney. And we're going to drive all the way across country with an entire group of our family. And we're going to go on every single ride. And until we go on every single ride, we're not going back. We're not sending anybody back. And we're getting back in the car, and we're coming back with the same family. And I've honored my word. We've not traded a player unless that
I was
player,
going to say, yeah, you haven't traded anybody.
unless we've been instructed by the American League team or a player. But
Sure.
we've literally hung on to every player. Now, obviously, when you go through 62 players as we've done, there's players that you have to cut at some point because you've brought them in while your injured
Sure.
players are happening. But I think building trust within that dynamic and a group, when we went on strike at Christmas, we were one of the few teams that didn't have. I was so proud of our players for sticking together, because that's what we created, was a culture where stick together. They were apologizing. I said, guys, you don't apologize. I'm proud that you guys stuck together and you did what you had to do, because that's what families do. And we didn't lose anybody to Europe. We didn't have guys that bolted, and we've got some high-end players. We've got the leading goal scorer in the league. We've got the leading rookie defenseman. We've got the leading rookie forward. We have players that are good players that could have went and played in Europe, and they didn't. And I do think the trust that you build and creating an environment that they just want to come to work every day. It's hard to, your staff, you're joking, showing me the picture of your original staff and where the coach's site is now and how it's grown. There's something to be said for player retention or staff retention. And I kind of took that approach this year, was how do we just keep everybody together? The team is being sold. It's being moved. It's not going to be here. It's been here for 31 years. The fans are devastated. They're losing the team that's been here for, 3 decades. How do you create a sense of family?
Is it moving?
It goes, yeah, it's moved. It's been sold. It was sold at the beginning of the year to Trenton, New Jersey. And so, this is 31 years. It's the 31st year.
Wow.
I mean, Don Hay coached this team. Butch Goring's coached. They've had some big name coaches coach this team back when it was the ECHL, I guess it would have been.
Oh, yeah.
So for this city to lose its team, and for the fans, it's a lot. And so you're trying to create a sense of family and unity when the equipment, the coaches left, the equipment guy left, the athletic trainer, there was nobody, there was no staff. The president and the person that managed the team, died unfortunately before the season started. There was nothing normal about what we were walking into this year. Yet you're trying to create a sense of unity and family. Wow. So I'm proud of the players. I'm proud of the staff that have done everything. Our poor athletic trainer, what a season she's had with the injuries and the catastrophic injuries, the University of Utah healthcare system. Like when you walk into our locker room, we've literally got 9-10 people working on players every single day because of the injuries. And to have that group of guys stay together, Aaron, the entire year is something I'm really proud of that we've been able to do with this group. And they play their butts off every single night. And no matter through the injuries and all the other drama that's happened, we've stayed close and tight as a group. And I think when I look back on this year and people ask me about it, it'll be the thing I'm most proud of, more so than anything, is the sense of community within our locker room and within our staff and the organization. And again, people you can't appreciate sometimes, walking through the mud unless you walk through the mud with that person. And, you've started your company here with the coach's site. And I know you'll deflect all the praise to everybody else, but you know what it's like when you're walking through it, and it's nice to walk through it with someone pulling you at the same time. And that's kind of been this year with the Utah Grizzlies.
Well, I want to close on this because, the show's great. But, and it's great because it introduces people to the coaches site and new coaches, and that's awesome. But the other thing that is just on a personal level is one thing you learn is that so much of the experiences we have in life, like you don't necessarily credit it for how it's going to influence you later on, but you hear these stories of coaches, and who they are as a coach is influenced by their parents, the town they grew up in, and just all these sort of external factors. And I look at you and you mentioned trust. Like, you were a firefighter, you grew up the son of a coach, you grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, which is, might as well be a finishing school if you're trying to get into hockey. When and I'm so everybody says we got to develop trust. It would appear to me that all of those things sort of, well, you were cutting your teeth as a young man, would have given you some real tangible experience on how to build trust and not just talk about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Sioux. I'm glad. There's a lot of, I turned 60 last year, so I don't think I'm old till I see myself on this, and I see my gray hair, and I see the wrinkles and the receding hairline, and you think,
got hair, John. Be thankful, man. You got hair. Like, I'm more the one wearing a hat here.
But I watched Paul Maurice, who obviously is a couple years younger than me. We grew up together in the Sioux. I watched how humble he was. I remember him getting emotional talking about his dad, and dad, the name Maurice is going to be beside Bella. Like, I remember how he talked about it. And everybody's proud of the town they come from, but like, Sault Ste. Marie is a steel town. It's not the easiest city to grow up in. Our fathers were all steel workers. Paul's dad was a teacher, so he didn't sling it out in the steel. But if I watched my dad work in a steel mill in 60 below weather, come out and water our rink, his boots would freeze to the ice. He'd have to get out of his work boots to and then use a shovel and then get in the car, and he was just excited to do it. And so I think, when you get to a point in your coaching career where you realize you're nobody, but you're somebody to somebody, but you're nobody, like, you're not what you think you are, but you are more than what you believe you are. And I don't know if I'm kind of making it confusing, but
no, but you still, I think what you're trying to like, your name might not be on lights, but you're still making an impact on somebody.
Yeah. And so you just start to look at it like, what are they going to, my dad said, what are they going to say in your eulogy? What are my kids going to say to me? And my wife, God bless her, 41 years, which, in this sport is like 1,000 years, that she stayed by me. And she has said to me so many times this year, she goes, as hard as it was to let you move to Salt Lake City, it's what you're meant to do. And she says, but I'm ready for you to stop saving players' lives. It's time for you to start being a grandfather. And she meant it in the sweetest way. She said, like, it's what you're supposed to do. I can't stop you from changing men's lives, but like, it's time for you to, it's time. And I don't disagree with it. Like I said, I took this out of a favor, as I said, to the gentleman that owned the Grizzlies that I did some work with previously. And I'm not regretful for it. Again, it brings me back to you guys. And I don't, and I mean this when I said this to you, when I stepped away full-time from coaching back in 2016, 2017, and started Pyramid Hockey and Twitter, you specifically in the coaches site, I would not be coaching the Utah Grizzlies today if it wasn't for you and the coaches site. I would not have what I have, because you guys made me somewhat relevant in a hockey world that I kind of thought I was done with. And you gave me a platform to speak to really smart hockey people, much smarter than me. And I had a voice, and I realized the power of social media. But I am eternally thankful and grateful to you specifically in the company, because I would not, 100% would not be coaching the Utah Grizzlies if it wasn't for the coaches site. Like I said, because it validated what was in my brain, that I actually knew maybe something a little bit about hockey, even though I was kind of written off. And I never once take this for granted. So I appreciate this. I appreciate your friendship and your loyalty to me as a person and to the companies I've been involved with. So I'm excited for the next chapter. I know we're going to do something special together, and we'll talk about it on another podcast, hopefully. But wanted you to say that, and I wanted the public to know you've been that for a lot of us hockey coaches, and something that your family will talk about when your day comes and you go to the good Lord. People are going to know what you meant to a lot of us in hockey. So I appreciate that.
Well, man, that's unbelievably kind, John. And but you know what? The as you know, like the best part about this whole thing is you just meet a lot of great humans being involved in this game, and we're all lucky for that. And some of us get to do it because we get to stand behind a bench. Some of us because we get to sit behind a microphone. And but however you do it,
Yeah.
it's as you said, it's all about the relationships. And this has been a blast. And if the result of this is we can get you back on sharing some of your insights on the coach's site, then then this has been awesome. But it's been great to catch up, man. We got to do this again soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.